back. He keeps bringing it. He gets some good downloads from a good source. So we enjoy having him on because you guys are loving it. I'm loving it. And bankers are liars and puppet masters of debt slavery. And we're going to talk about how, as we awaken, we break that system. So, Larry, thanks a lot for coming on again.
I love coming out with you, Michael. I mean, I really do. We have a kindred soul. I think you hear from God, I hear from God, and I just take what he gives me and then I just research it and spit it out. So basically, let's get started. So pop up the first slide. We're going to go through some of them fast and some of them slow. So pop up the first one and you chime in anytime you want. So that's just to tell us the title, precious metals. So that's what we're about, gold versus silver. And then the second one there is if you want to buy my book, you can go and buy it on Amazon. All you do is just at the end there's a QR code. Well, it's actually right there. You can buy the book, you can buy merchandise, you can get a free chapter, but we'll get into that. Let's go to this picture. This is what Michael was referring to. I tried to find a picture with a fourth person and I couldn't find it. So let me tell you who this is depicting here. These are what I fondly call the robber barons of the Industrial Revolution. You may know who some of these people are. The guy in the middle is J.P. Morgan. And so I can't do a show without history, right? I just can't do it without history and without the Bible. So he was an interesting guy. He was a guy who funded Tesla, Nikola Tesla, and then pulled it when he found out that he was going to give the world free energy. He's the guy who represented our mortal enemy. And who would our mortal enemy be? It's the enemy we've been sleeping with all this time. It's England. He was representing the banking cartel in England. And then these caricatures are a little hard to figure out, but I think the guy on the right is Rockefeller. He was the oil baron. And I think the other guy is Vanderbilt, who was, I'm going to get confused as to which one was which. Vanderbilt was steel and Carnegie was the railroads. Right. So they were the four men who controlled. If you ever watched it, if you haven't watched it, you can get it. The Men Who Built America. Amazing series. So I want to take you one step deeper into history, and then we're going to go. So without these men orchestrating what they orchestrated, we would not have the institution that is enslaving us, which is the central banking system. They didn't do it, but they set up the framework for it to happen under, I'm not going to forget, under Roosevelt. So basically, Roosevelt ran for office saying, I swear, you will never see a central banking system under my administration. Within a year, we had the central banking system, the creature in Jaco Island, a story. It's an amazing story. And that put us into the debt system that we're in right now. So the robber barons have been controlling us forever. Let's go down, and we're almost done with the history, and then we can get into the stuff that's really interesting. But I just always like to say, well, the audience needs to have some foundation for what we're doing. So what you're seeing here, let me get my slide to go where it's supposed to go. Hold on. There we go.
Have you ever been to Jaco Island, Larry?
No, I have not been there. No. Have you?
Yeah. We went there and did a tour. It was one of those times where we had to escape the hurricanes coming into Florida, and they kept pushing us, so we had to go up into Georgia. So we went up to Jaco Island, and boy, what a history lesson that was. You can tell the energy there is really, really, I'm tapped into energies and so forth. The energy is still very evil there.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a lie that took us into the slavery we're in. And then if you read the book, and if you were there, I know you know what I'm going to say. So they lied to us. They knew that they weren't going to be able to get that legislation through to bring us into the central banking system. So they waited until Christmas when everybody was out visiting their families, and they called the insiders in to vote. And that's how we got it. I mean, it's been a scam from the get-go. So let's go on down, and there we are. And here's what I'm going to tell you now. This was just what you need to know. Our banking system, since that point in time, since we went into the central banking system, has been nothing but a Ponzi scheme. Every dollar ever printed under this Ponzi scheme creates a debt. And how it creates that debt is it creates a treasury note, which is a debt obligation. So they print currency backed by nothing and then charges interest by creating a treasury note. And so that's how our debt goes. Every dollar printed, every loan made does the same thing. It drives us deeper in debt. It goes up and up and up and up and up until we're up to here and we can't afford to service the debt. And then it collapses. That's where we're at right now. So that's what they did. And then I'm just going to give you a little idea that people on the inside, they knew what was going on. So this is from Ford, Henry Ford, the man who invented the automobile. He said, "It is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, I believe we would have a revolution before tomorrow morning." So that's the system we're under. And that's why God has me doing, he says, you are a teacher. I could spit this stuff out without slides. I could do it quick, but God wants you to have foundation. So there it is. We've got a criminal system running our government. Let's go on down. And this is how it repeats. Now, Donald Trump has something different planned, but let's go to 29, and we collapse slow motion from 29 to 33 till we declared bankruptcy. And then we go to 08, and we almost went under then. And here's the cycle. And this is what they want to do again, but that's not what's going to happen this time. So they have the fiat Ponzi debt trap, where our dollar is not backed by anything, and it just becomes worth less and less and less. And the reason we have things that are so costly now is because the dollar is only worth about 3 cents. When I went into real estate very early in my life because I worked going through college building skyscrapers, and that got me interested in real estate. So at 19, I bought my first house. That was a long time ago, folks, a long time ago. And it was a 10-room duplex, all brick, hardwood floors, $17,500. I sold it 15, 20 years ago for $115,000. Why? Not because it was worth that much more, but because the dollar was worth that much less. So what I want to bring in here is an understanding that the reason things are so expensive is because there's no buying power, which brings us to that picture on the left. That's where fear comes in. That's where people start investing in gold and silver. That's where we're at right now. But they lie to us even about that. So that cycle is to have the fiat Ponzi system that drives us into debt, then the fear drives us into the precious metals, and then the government starts the cycle all over. They bring in gold and they bring in silver, and they lower our fear. And then once they get us onto the new system, we're going to put you on a gold-backed system until, say, something happens like Nixon comes along in 71 and says, well, we used to be on a gold system, but we're not anymore. Gotcha. And so that's what they do. And now we're back on a fiat system all of a sudden. And then they abandoned precious metals. That was Nixon. And we're back on fiat currency. The whole cycle, the Ponzi scheme starts over again. So I found this picture down there, and I thought that was perfect to describe it. It's a merry-go-round. It just goes round and around and around and around and around. But when we get to the right slide, we're going to talk about how Trump is going to change the merry-go-round. So let me stop, because I can talk. Maybe you would like on your own show to say something.
No, you're hitting all the good points. The system, you're talking about the Ponzi scheme is being exposed. More and more people are waking up, getting out of debt, putting their money in precious metals. So we're going to beat the system by being in precious metals. And I know that you're going to talk deeper about that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And it's more than precious metals. So have you ever heard a head of the Fed come on the air and talk to the people as much as Walsh is? I didn't. Never. They're just secretive. They're quiet. And I can't remember his name. Back in the 70s, maybe. Who was the president? Who was the head of the Fed in the 70s? I can't remember his name. Well, anyway, the point is, no, before Volcker. Before.
Okay.
Greenspan. So Greenspan came on TV on the Lear report, and he was asked a very interesting question. Mr. Chairman, what is the principal relationship between the President of the United States and the head of the Fed? Now listen to this, folks. This is important. It doesn't make any difference. is what he said. As long as the relationship that we have established is a place that doesn't make any difference, the government of the United States have no ability to control us. They can't audit us. There's nothing they can do. Or in other words, we run the government of the United States. The government of the United States is run by the central banking system and the IMF coming out of our mortal enemy, England. England, the people upon the sun never set, who control the banking system. Them, along with the Vatican, control the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the financial resources of all the world, and they puppet every nation. So maybe that's a good place for us to stop and see if you want to elaborate further on that, and then we'll get back into Walsh.
Yeah, Greenspan, they called him the maestro of manipulation. I remember I've been a option trader for quite a long time, and I felt very strongly that the stock market was going to crash because he's going to raise rates again. And I was like, okay, got a bunch of put options. Sure enough, he raised rates, and the stock market plunged. And I'm like, well, I'm already in the money big. I'm going to make a lot of money on this one. So I went back to work, and I went back maybe an hour later, and I was like, okay, how much they're going to be worth now? He had reversed his, raising rates. He reversed it after he had, made his statements and everything. And then he's like, oh yeah, I further looking at the market and, so forth. He was protecting the market. I was like, I even knew more than Greenspan. But that's the manipulation that these guys do. And of course, my options were out of the money. I had to close them with a loss, but that's the way these guys are. They were probably all lined up, going to make money on that mini crash that started happening, and then they knew exactly when he was going to come back and reverse it, and then we're going to take those options and turn them into calls, put options into calls, and make money back and forth. That's the way these guys work. They're huge manipulators.
Maybe this is a good point. Unless you're on a tight timeline, if you are, we'll go on. If not, maybe we can have a little mini conversation around what you just said.
Yeah, we got plenty of time. Yeah, we can.
Okay, all right. So you're probably not going to believe this. They lie. So when we went into 29, we had the roaring 20s, and they said the stock market's never it's wonderful. Then come Black Friday and people are jumping out of skyscrapers and blowing their brains out, right? And then we go to 08. What happened in 08? The market is going great. Real estate is going through the roof. Everything is wonderful. And then the next day, Lehman Brothers fell, and they come out and said, we didn't see it coming. But guess what? They had a 2,000-page stimulus bill written that they must have written over the weekend, of course, because they got caught with their shorts down, right? No, they lied. And now, I'm not calling Walsh a liar, but some circumstances, I told you before we started, I'm beginning to put the pieces together to give you the real big overview. So he's coming on as the chairman of the Fed. When he first came in, what did he say to us? He says, now as the new chairman of the Fed, here is the central responsibility that I have to give to the American people. I have to keep interest rates down so we can service the debt, and I have to keep as much full employment as I can. That's what he said. And under a normal set of circumstances, that's true. That's what they should be doing. But that's not what's going to happen. So as we go in, I've got a show that I'm working on right now, and it's you're going to see a set of circumstances occur where Walsh is pushing right now to create the circumstances where he can lower the debt, because there's something that in our current position where we're up to our eyeballs in debt that's more important than low interest rates in and of itself, and more important than jobs, is that we get the interest rate down so we can have a soft collapse, so that we can not have to go into a hard default. So what's really going to happen, he's going to push to get interest rates down. And then I'll go into this in more detail if you want to do a show on detail on all of this. But the combination of geological events orchestrated by God and circumstances that are happening over in Japan with the reverse carry trade they're going to create something similar to what caused you to have your financial bath before. So what's going to happen is the reverse carry trade is going to cause them to have to save Japan. They're going to have to flush a whole lot of bonds into the market, and then what that's going to do is going to cause Wash to have to increase the interest rates. They're going to be forced to do it. And when that happens, what's going to be forced to happen? The stimulus is because we're in this situation right now. During that stimulus, more money was printed by most nations than had been printed in the previous 200 years. So what is this going to do to force Trump? Trump is going to have to do another stimulus. And then guess what? The whole circle, I'll go into this more detail if you want to do something on it as a separate show. What's going to happen is now the whole circle is complete, and that collapses the financial system. So before we started, I asked you if you believed there was going to be a financial collapse, and you said yes. And I wanted to ask that because I don't want to say anything in your show that conflicts with what you said. So we're not at odds. But there's a lot of people out there that say, no, Donald Trump himself said the stock market is doing better than ever. Everything is, he's right. He's true. He's not lying to you. True. But these set of circumstances that I just lined up are being orchestrated by the enemy, by England, by the Vatican, by the corrupt politicians in Washington, and they're going against. We're on what Sun Tzu would call death ground. We either win or the bad guys win. If they win, it's probably 500 years of total dictatorship and mass extinction. If we win, it's peace and prosperity and financial prosperity for everybody. So they're manipulated. And what I want to do is come in and do a detailed show that shows you what they're doing. But you'll never believe this. I'll hold this. Trump has a Trump card. Yeah. It's not going to work out the way they think. And one thing about it that I do want to interject, if for those of you who follow me, when this war in Iran started back in February, I came on first thing and I said, don't worry. I'm not worried. I read my Bible. I know what's going on. God said way back in Ecclesiastes, he said, this day will come and it will be Iran. And God told me when we are at the most pivotally important, dangerous moment in the history of the world right now, not World War I, not World War II, but when the final war, the final battle is on for who runs the world, you need to know your enemy. And he told me I had to read the Quran cover to cover. So I knew all the way back from 68 forward that it was going to be Iran that was going to turn out, not China. China is our enemy, but they're puppeted by England. So Iran was going to be the one that was going to throw the world into chaos. And I said, God puts a hook in their mouth and they come down. So here's what most people probably are not going to figure out, and you may know about it because your wife told me today that you've been doing a lot of shows on natural catastrophes and things. Yep. But what we need to understand is we have a kinetic war, and now with the infrastructure she's taken out, we have a financial war, but we have something else. We have an old-fashioned siege, and what we have is a situation where Iran is out of water. And they're actually saying Tehran, the capital, which is, I'll probably pronounce that wrong, which has 9 million people. The water crisis is so bad, they may be forced to evacuate their own capital. So now let's look at this. They have killed thousands of people when they came out and protested, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when you get to a point where the people are more afraid of something else, then they come out and they stand up and they take their nation back. So with the water crisis that's happening, here's what I predict. This is a prediction. I predict we're going to get in a situation where there's virtually no water, means no food. The economy is absolutely crashed, and the people will fear those circumstances more than they were fear the IRGC shooting them and killing them when they come out and protest. So I believe this whole thing is going to come out just exactly the way God did, a hook in the mouth of Iran, and they collapse internally, and we have complete regime change. And within Iran, there are people coming, they're getting visitations from the Lord, and Iran has got the largest conversion to Christianity of any nation in the world. So when we come out of this, Iran is no longer going to be able to leverage oil. They're no longer going to be run by the RIGC. If they have any control at all, it'll be financial, not military. And we're going to bring peace to the Middle East. And that's going to hasten us moving in to all kinds of other stuff that we need to table until another time. So that was all from what you said. I apologize. That's just off of my head. So do you want to chime in on that mouthful that I spit at you?
Yeah, that's impressive. I've said the same thing, because I spent a lot of time. I've spent decades in the Middle East. All of us knew that was Iran that was causing the problem. So I knew at some point Iran was going to be taken down. So here we're at that point. I think they're being squeezed. President Trump and his head of the Treasury, Bissett, they basically said that they're going to squeeze Iran like no one's ever been squeezed in history economically. Mm-hmm. So that you're right on line.
Old-fashioned siege: cut off the economics, cut off the water, cut off the food, and you only have two choices: starve to death or surrender. They're going to surrender. They're going to be forced to surrender, and they're not. The people aren't even going to have to be afraid of the RGC, because guess what's happening? They're already having desertions because they can't afford to pay them anymore, and the proxies don't have any money and any funding. So it's all a matter of, if you don't have any money, if you don't have any water, if you have an economy where your dollar is absolutely worthless, something's got to change. That's where it's at. So we going down? So let's go to the next slide. And what Morris is saying, he's trying to tell us the truth. But as I outlined before we got into this sidebar, is something's going to change. And here's what I want to say. I'm getting ready to go into gold and silver. So, and there may be people out there who adamantly disagree with what I'm going to say. Morris is telling you, pay attention to the unemployment information, and pay attention to all these indicators, and that's going to tell you where to go. But I'm saying I don't pay attention to any of it. You know why? Because that's all short term. That's short term. That's for people going in the market, out of the market, in the market, out of the market. For those people who are buying because they've been told by God to buy, or because they're buying as a hedge, they don't care what the short term implications are of any of those parameters. They're here because there's a financial crisis is coming down, and they need to be in it until the time to exit is occurring, which is not now. So let's go on down to the next slide. And here's where we're starting to get into gold. I know you know a lot about gold and silver, so you interrupt me at any point in time that you want to. So here's what I said. This is where I disagree with people. There are a lot of people who are telling you, go run to gold, run to gold, run to gold. Well, I say gold is been the store of value forever. And what they're saying to us is, and go look at what the central banks are doing. They're buying gold, they're buying silver, they're buying lots and lots of gold. And so go do what they're doing. I say, okay, but you need to understand the dynamics of gold versus the dynamics of silver. For decades, gold and silver had run an absolute parallel. They were precious metals, and that was it. Now silver is more than a precious metal. It is an absolutely global necessity. We have to have oil, we have to have silver, we have to have water, and we have to have food. Gold does not fall in that category. So gold goes up when fear occurs. And when the fear starts to dissipate, the climb of gold is going to stop. And if you're caught in it, when that happens, you're not going to be able to get out, because gold doesn't pay you any dividends, no interest, and you're sitting over there and the market's not going up. You're not going to have a buyer to give you an exit out of gold. So treat gold as an insurance policy. Put in, depending on how much money you have, a percentage of your money into gold. Do it as an insurance policy, but treat silver differently, because I'm going to get into two slides here that are going to show you why. But so I'm done with this slide unless you want to comment any further on it.
Yep, that's good.
All right, let's go down to the next one. So we're going to talk about gold and silver just a little bit more, and then I'm going to get into two slides that will give us an understanding of what Trump is trying to execute. So bottom line, invest some money in gold as an insurance policy. Silver is now a strategic asset. And as a strategic asset, here's what I want you to know. We have had a shortage of silver. All the gold, never mind, is on the planet in some fashion or another. It's in a gold coin. It's in a vault. It's in jewelry. It didn't go into any industrial mechanisms. And so it's retrievable. It's there. The silver gets put into manufacturing, and to a degree, some of it can be processed, but it's very expensive, and most of it doesn't get back into circulation. So we're using it over and over and over again. It's a depleting resource. And now what you need to know is for the last 6 years, at the peak, we had 10 years of already mined silver sitting in repositories that we could draw from. For the last 6 years, we've been drawing from that repository, and the situation is getting worse. That's why Trump has made the moves on silver that he's made on. I'm going to hold on those until we get to the right slide, so I've got a graphic. So what we're going to see is silver is going to go into high-tech industries. It's going to go into the AI stuff. It's going to go into quantum computing. It's going to go where you have to have the most efficient electrical conductor in the world, silver. But as they build the new factories, the $18 trillion plus worth of factories Trump is going to build, copper will work for that. That's all the infrastructure for those factories. And so between the three metals, gold is my least recommendation. I look at it as just an insurance policy. But now if you get into silver, here's what I want to tell you. It is going to be more liquid. Here's what's happening. So I know you bought some silver. I buy silver. Millions of us buy silver. And it's then taken out of circulation because we hold it, right? And then we know that the banks now, and just with what happened with the CarMax, they're buying silver because if they don't have the silver, they have to close their factories, right? They're buying it. We know the governments are buying it. And so we know that the green energy people are consuming about 40% of all the silver we use. So as bad as it's been, the shortage is increased. It's worse.
Yep.
And we're in a situation where now silver is becoming really valuable. And there are people saying it might go to 200, 250. That's just the floor to open the mines. And when we get to the right slide, I'm going to tell you my personal opinion of where silver is going to go, and it's going to blow people's minds. So comments on any of this before we go on?
Yeah, if we go back into the 70s and we look at the prices, the highs of gold, silver, and copper. Copper is back then. Copper's like 14 times higher than it was back in the 70s and early 80s. So if you look at same thing with gold is like almost 8 times higher than it was back then. So why is silver still almost at the same height? Today we're looking at about 65. That's about $10, $15 more than what it was. $50 is the high for the
like the Hunt brothers when they tried to capture the market.
Right.
That was a paper market.
The banksters are controlling it with their paper, not the real asset.
So that's something that we need to bring up. That's the CarMax that you're talking about. And now what's happening? It gives you liquidity to move in and out of silver. So now it used to be for decades, the CarMax would give you futures options on silver. And when the time came, if you didn't want to take the silver, you could just take the money, right? Well, now we saw that this is coming to a situation where there's a shortage and where the manufacturers are saying, I don't want your money under any consideration. I have to have blank numbers of ounces of silver to keep my factory open. And so every month that's going to happen over and over again, and that's going to give you the opportunity to enter and exit the silver market, because it's going to go like this depending on what the level of demand is at any given time. You're not going to have that with gold. Gold is tied at that point only to fear. When fear subsides, that's it. It freezes. So let's go down to the next slide. And this is where we get into what Trump is doing that's different. And this is where I'll jump off in the next week or two, and I'll go into the details of how this gets even more involved. But you mentioned gold. I want to go back. I want to go to history. So where was gold? What was the price of gold in 1929 when we collapsed? It was $35. What did they do? They confiscated it. What happened right after they confiscated? They raised it 69%. Why did they do that? Before I answer that question, what is gold on the books at now? $42. What is gold selling for? I don't know what it is today, but it's been for $4,000, $4,500. So now why did they do what they did? Because they always intentionally leave gold at incredibly, ridiculously low price. Why do they do that? Donald Trump is telling us right here in this graphic, because they know that they're going to drive the system up. They're going to create the Ponzi scheme. Everything's going to collapse. And then they have to have a way to get the people to begin to trust the currency system again. So what Donald Trump has told us he's going to do is take gold, it's on the books in the Treasury at $42 now, and raise it to $20,000 or more. He's going to take Bitcoin and raise it to $1 million. He's going to put in a stable coin and tie it to a treasury note, so that you have to have it, because if that now tethers the dollar to the stable coin, so you have to, and that's going to cause us to start to have the slow motion collapse that we want, so we can collapse the system. And so then you have XRP as we roll in to the new digital system. Then XRP is going to be the rails, and you can literally take a container, a ship with 2 million barrels of oil in it, and you can, like that, say, I want to buy 1 tablespoon of oil. How much would it cost me? And it can tell you. And then it can make that purchase in 3 to 6 seconds at virtually no cost at all. That's the system we're going into. We're moving from manufacturing going into China for decades to it coming back to us right now. I'm going to freeze that right now, right here. And then in a subsequent show, I'm going to tell you how all this flips. And it's going to be very important you to understanding, audience, the nuances of what's coming. It's going to tell you that there's all these investment opportunities out there. And I'm going to do a show, I've got it queued up already for anybody who wants to do it, that tells you where to move your money out of and what to move your money into. But now I'm going to give you just a hint as to where I'm going to be going with that. That's for the general population. The people watching this show are not the general population. The people watching this show are the called people, who are the people of God, who are following the Lord. And for those people, the transfer of wealth is going to be massive abundance. Wealth will come with all the things with Nassar and all the redoing of the laws and the legislation to a lot of different people in the mass. But most of them, God says you have to be prepared to be a steward for the wealth. They'll be like the guy who won the lottery, and then in 5 years they're broke. They'll be like like Tyson and like some of the movie stars who were worth millions and millions and millions are now homeless, right? So, but those for us who God has prepared, we're going to be the stewards. We're going to keep that money. We're going to know what to do. So I'm going to be doing shows that are just for the 1%ers, just for the ones God called, and they go into a whole different class of investments, and they have a whole different strategy than the general population. But that has to be a separate show. But before I go on, comments on that, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, you're laying out the plan. I agree that the 1%ers watch these shows, and they're the ones that are going to be very well taken care of going forward.
God's tested our hearts, and He knows that we're not going to squander that money. We're going to use that money to do what God says. He says the number 2 thing in the whole world is to love thy neighbor as thyself. And we're going to share. We're going to be the stewards. That we're going to have some very serious, with these geological events, some very, very serious problems that have to be solved in this world. We're going to be the ones that are going to get the inventions to solve them. We're going to be able to be the ones that have the money to create the humanitarian projects, because we're the ones that God has prepared to be the stewards, to see to it that that money flows not to us, but through us. No. And so I'll do a show, if you want to, at some point in time, just for the 1%ers, just for those people that have heard God and done what God told them to do. Shall we go on?
Yeah, great.
All right, let's go on down. And here we go. And so there's a saying, they say, who controls money controls the world. How do you control the world? Well, if you control the money, you can buy power and influence any place you want. And you can buy the lying media, you can buy the bankers, you can buy the corporations, you can buy the school system, you can buy Hollywood, you can buy all the spheres of influence. But they're missing something. That's starting at the end. You got to start at the beginning. So Trump knows this. He who controls manufacturing, natural resources, then controls production, and then they control the sale of the goods. And then that's when the money comes in, and then that's where you buy the power. We're about to take that chain of events and flip it upside down and put it in the hands of the 1%ers. That's what's coming. That's what's going to happen. Rebuild America. And for it to happen, we have to have deglobalization, because globalism makes us controlled by the global elite, right? So we have to have an economic system that is decentralized. All right. And so then what happens down here, all nations must have sovereign assets. So what's Trump telling us? And what did Eisenhower telling us? And what actually, if you go all the way back, what did Lincoln tell us? Lincoln said, we are going to have governments that are going to be run, because I see the formation of banks and corporations getting their money together and controlling the politicians and all these spheres of influence. And what did Eisenhower say? Eisenhower said that, is there any man, any child, any woman who doesn't understand the central cause of war in the world is lack of economic parity between nations? So we're going to get out of globalization and go to deglobalization. But when we get to the right slide, I'm going to show you that even that is a trap, but I'm going to show you where it comes in. All right, here we go to the next slide. So this is what I'm talking about silver and what distinguishes it. The Secure Minerals Act. Donald Trump is going all over the world. He's passing legislation, and he's seeing to the, we're not going to let China control all the natural resources anymore. We're going to have everything we need. Let's go down to the next slide. And then what's he doing? He's saying, I'm going to put in legislative form something that we did after World War II. During World War II, we went to Ford, we went to all the manufacturers, and we said, the Defense Production Act is in force. I'm sure you know about this. And you're not going to make those cars. You're not going to make those trucks. You're going to make tanks and whatever. And so he's saying right now, we're going to put a floor price on silver so that we always can have enough silver to keep our factories open, because we're going to need massively more, because he arranged, when he came in his first term, to get the Chevron decision passed that held from us 5,915 patents that he said have already been developed. They're just ready to come in and be brought to scale. But I don't know if I'm going to do this on this show or another show, but what's going to happen is we're going to find out that that is a crumb compared to what's going to be coming. There's something coming that is going to take us, I'll use a word, quantumly into the future and change our entire economic and geopolitical system. And it's not evil, but it depends on who it's controlled by. So if it's controlled by us, it brings peace and prosperity and abundance to the world. If it's controlled by the bad guys, it brings absolute slavery. I'll save that for another show. But anyway, there's a lot of things happening, and they do lie to us. Let's go on down. And so we're going to talk about the silver doom loop. And this is why he's put those two pieces of legislation into place, because he knows that we're now going into hoarding. And as we go into hoarding, it makes it worse. And so he's saying, we're going to make provisions for you to have the silver that you want. And I want to bring you some more history. 2016, silver production peaked. It's fallen 7% then since then. Listen to this. Estimates are that by 2030, silver supply will meet only 62 to 70% of our global demand. You want to fix that tomorrow? Tomorrow. Not legislation. Tomorrow, you want to fix it. Every person out there, every 100%er out there listening to me, here's what you need to do. You need to understand that China is the number one manufacturer of solar panels, the number one manufacturer of windmills, and the number one manufacturer of EV batteries. And you need to understand that they are by design grossly inefficient. And so we're going to get into some slides on that. And what we need to do is, Donald Trump has told us that the Green Deal, the $93 trillion Green New Deal, is a scam. We need to get educated, which I'll do for you a little bit in the next few slides that are coming up. And we need to go against the Green New Deal, because if we do, automatically, before we open a single mine, if we could kill the Green New Deal tomorrow. So Trump said, you go over to China. They're the number one manufacturer of those two technologies. Yet if you go to Europe, you're going to see vast solar fields. You're going to see vast windmill fields. You go to China where it's all being produced. He says, you don't see that. He says, they know. They're just basically building them because England is telling them to build them. And so basically they're building us to collapse Europe, to collapse America, to collapse any nation that's stupid enough to buy into the Green New Deal lie. So Trump is telling us it's a scam. And so we're going to get a little bit educated on it. Let's go down to the next slide, and then I'm going to shut up and give you a chance to talk. I'm just going to talk about one thing on it. You can read all this. I'm just going to go to the very bottom where you see those two red dices. I'm going to read this. This is about the silver squeeze that's coming up. It says, watch for signs that the government is squeezing the public out of the market. They're not, in my opinion, going to come in and outright confiscate silver like they confiscated gold at 33. What they're going to do is they're going to say, we have to have that silver for strategic purposes. And if we have to, we're going to put in legislation that's going to force the people out. It's good. It's going to be less profitable. So capital gains and one of the things that they're going to do. I happen to live in Missouri, and I'm fortunate because when I go buy silver, I don't have to pay sales tax. Some states you have to pay sales tax. So they can make our investment less profitable, and they don't have to come out and take it. They just change certain pieces of legislation. So we'll be tracking that and following that. Now let me shut up again and throw it back to you before we go into the depths of what's happening in the Green New Deal.
Yeah, that's probably coming. It's going to be a topping out process because, like you're saying here, the industrial demand is going to start to flatten. If he goes in and exposes China in this Green New Deal and destroys that, that's a huge silver, market that's going to be going away. So then it's going to go to other things that silver can be used for. So it's going to probably pull the price down. So yeah, probably around 253, maybe even as high as 500. But from that point on, we have to really watch this.
What this tells you is points to look at for when you want to exit the silver market.
Yes.
But there's another dynamic to this. So what we're going to do is before that happens, we're going to get to just exactly the point that you said. But before that happens, Trump has commitments for $18 trillion to build new factories. That's where we get to the 250, 300 price to open the mines up. And then what's happening is once this war is over in Iran, there's on again, off again conversations that are happening with the Middle East oil producing nations. But my prediction, based on what they're talking about, is that they know that the tourism industry is dying. They know that they have a water problem. They know that their oil is being used up. And they really want to create something akin to the petrodollar situation that they had before. So they want to come in and give us trillions of dollars to invest in America because they really understand America is going to be greater than ever. And so we're going to, I think, have the 18 trillion, and then we're going to have more. And then we have that 5,915 patents. And then on top of that, we'll talk about it in another presentation. The quantum computing system is going to lead to the greatest technological revolution the world has ever seen. So the demand for silver short term will be stabilized when we get out of the new Green Deal. But once we really get into building that huge amount of factories, it's just going to stabilize. But there'll be times to come in and times to go out. There'll be plenty of time to tell you the indications that say, get out of silver and get into other things. But silver is going to be much more liquid than gold. Let's go on down and let's talk about the new Green Deal and chime in anytime you want. So AOC is lying to us. Bernie Sanders is lying to us. China is lying to us. England is lying to us. We have a grand total. I live in Branson. That's a small town. It's only 13,000, but we have 10 million visitors a year. You know how many charging stations we have in Branson? One. One.
You guys are
and every time I drive by it, it's empty. Okay. I mean, we got technology coming that's so much better than that it's not even funny. Did you know that the nation that has more patents per percentage of the population in this world is Israel? They're pretty smart people, and they're God's people. And so they have a solar panel that is vastly more efficient than anything out there, because we have a regulation that says you can't put out a solar panel if it's more than 30% efficient. So here, I'm going to expose some of the lies of the Green New Deal right now. So here's what happens. They said, no, it's all about carbon. The Green New Deal gets us off of the grid. No, it doesn't, folks. It doesn't, because you go out and you collect the sun's rays, you collect the wind, but you got to ultimately get it to the user. And how do you get it to the user? So you're starting out with a solar panel that's not allowed to be more than 30% efficient, and now you got to get it from that field to the consumer. And when it passes on the lines on the grid and shows up in your house, it can have up to a 60% degradation. So you started with the most expensive energy solution in the world, operating at an efficiency level of 30% with a 60% degradation. And that's why we can't afford to be in Green New Deal. Comments before we go on, Mike?
Yeah, once a Green New Deal collapses, it's not that silver is not going to be in demand anymore. It's going to move to something else, like space. Space uses lots of silver as well. So we're going to really start our space, force and space exploration. It's going to go to another level. So that's where a lot of that silver is going.
All the technologies in the world, this is going to shock you, are going to be antiquated. Because here's what's coming. I've been following this for years. When we go to quantum computers, it's no longer ones and zeros. It's a whole different system. Mm-hmm. Quantum computing can solve problems in a matter of minutes that a conventional computer with ones and twos can't solve, period. And the things that's going to do for this industrial revolution, we'll have a baseline of those 5,915 patents. But what it's going to do to revolutionize the world is going to be amazing. And all of that is going to cost more and more silver. So silver is the quintessential substance on the planet. Silver is going to become more valuable than oil because we're going to be able to get off of oil to a degree. Here's what you got to have it. It's in the plastic, it's in your bags, it's in everything you can imagine. However, we have a lot more oil than they tell us we have, and now we've got technology coming on board where we can take oil, and we can take all those coal mines in the center of in the eastern part of the United States. Mm-hmm. Well, here's something that's interesting. They've sat there vacant for decades, and as they sit there, water runs through them, and basically it causes acid, and it breaks down minerals. And now we found out that we can go in and just like we clean up our water, we recycle our water so that we can use it over again, taking the sewage plants and so forth. We can tap those contaminated creeks and rivers, clean them up. Right now, a lot of them won't support fish life. And now between the process that's happening with the vacant coal mines and the oil, we can convert that into hydrogen. So we're going to have hydrogen, which can be moved around the world much easier than crude oil. It's a gas, and it's much cleaner and much more powerful and much more efficient. And then we're going to move in to the suppressed technologies. So that's going to be in the slide that shows that cost. So let's go on down to that. We've got it. They've been lying to us. So the year is 1921, and Nikola Tesla has an automobile called the Pierce Arrow, and it runs on energy from the ether. And right now, I can't remember the guy's name, but over in Africa, there's a guy who has a technology that claims to do that very thing. We'll see if he really gets into the market. But he's doing what exactly was happening with Tesla in 21. And then let's go to 1987. And there was a device the size of a pack of cigarettes that ran a car, no gas, no nothing, just out of energy. The whole world is energy. We just need to learn to tap it. The whole world is frequency. We just need to understand it. And now with quantum computing, we're going to move into an entirely new understanding of the physics of the world, and it's going to change everything. So we're going to migrate from oil to a degree to hydrogen, and then we're going to migrate from there to the newer technologies, and then it's going to take 10, 20, 15 years to bring totally free energy to the world without completely collapsing the global monetary system. But for this next generation, the younger people, you will live at a time in the world where everything ever made was made with free energy. And because it was made with free energy, energy is the most expensive component in everything you buy. You've got to mine it, you've got to refine it, you've got to build it in factories, you've got to ship it around, and every one of those, the principal cost is energy. Now I'm going to say something that's probably going to blow your mind and blow the mind of the audience, and this is my personal opinion. That's all it is. I just want to give you that caveat. I believe as we go through this cycle, that silver on its own merit is going to go up to that $500 level where we get all the mines open. But then something's going to happen that people aren't going to understand. And this is coming from my understanding of my time in real estate, where I was in real estate for 12 years. I eventually became a broker. Then I owned my own small brokerage firm. And I learned a lot of things here. So here's what's happening. So I bought my first house when I was 19, $17,500. Now the mean average price of a house in COVID was $200,000. Now it's $400,000. That house didn't go up. None of those houses went up. The value of the dollar went down. So here's what's going to happen to silver, and it's going to blow people's minds. So they're saying, well, that's probably as high as silver could ever go because if it gets too high, it's going to be too expensive to use in manufacturing, right? And it'll shut the manufacturing industry down. No, not if I'm analyzing this correctly, because here's what happens. We get off the fiat system, we go to commodity-backed system, and now the dollar becomes worth $1 again. And here's what happens. Now we're going to have a technological revolution. It's going to be very difficult for people. But AI is going to take over most of the jobs, and and the corporations are not going to have to pay welfare. They're not going to have to pay insurance. They're not going to have to pay medical insurance. They're not going to have to pay retirement. They're not going to have to pay salaries. And so the cost of making everything is going to be so much less that you can't even imagine. And so now, today, the way the world is functioning, maybe the maximum price we can see for silver is $300, just enough to get the mines open. But when we go back and we reestablish the economic system based on God's commodities, and the cost to manufacture everything is down to where we're going to have a situation where the corporations are going to be so wealthy, and we're only going to be working maybe 20 hours a week, that we'll have some sort of government subsidy income coming in. And at that point, silver could go to $1,000 or $2,000, and we could still keep all the factories open because all the cost burdens that suppress it right now are gone. Now that's a mouthful. If you want to completely disagree with me, please come in and I won't be insulted if you say, Larry, you're full of whatever. So back to you.
Yeah, I think there's going to be like a gap. It's going to move very quickly, I think, in the coming months. Could reach the 500. Who knows? Maybe some part of next year, depending on what's happening with the economy and so forth. Then there's going to be a pullback, and that's what you mentioned earlier in your presentation.
Financial collapse.
Really go
That's
in.
Exactly right.
Could be a good pullback, and this is good probably around the time frame stock market's crashing. Who knows? And you want to take advantage of that pullback and sell. So half of that at least, and then hold your other half for that 1,000 or greater level. That'll come in the coming years.
So what you're saying is what they always tell you: get your original investment back.
Yes,
that's what you just said in a nutshell. And I want to comment, so people don't think I'm absolutely crazy. I want to tell you how that it's accomplished. It's accomplished if we go to 1,000 or even more. It's accomplished in two ways. It's accomplished because manufacturing is now almost essentially a cost-free process, because they don't have laborers. Everything is running automated. So that happens. But here's the other thing that happens: the dollar is only worth about 3 cents. So now if the dollar goes back to $1, that's 97% reversal. That means that everything, the house that's $500,000 right now, is going to be maybe $50,000. So it's not that silver really changes. It's just that the value of money changes.
Right.
The dollar becomes worth $1. But here's the beautiful part about it, if you're in the silver, you're in the catbird seed. I mean, you're right exactly where you need to be. So anyway, I'm not a financial investor. I'm an analyst. I'm a person who gets my downloads from God and then just goes and do the things. Now, here's my caveat. That number that I'm talking about may never happen, but if it does happen, it's not this week, it's not next week, it's not year. It's when we have fully realized the technological revolution that God is going to bring to the earth, and that's several years from now. But I just trying to lay the groundwork for the things that sound crazy, maybe aren't crazy. Shall we go on?
Yeah.
All right. So this is the other thing I want you to see. All those solar panels. Oh my God. Here in Branson, up in Springfield. It didn't hit us. We're 30 miles away. We just had a hailstorm where they had hailstorm the size of a baseball. And my best friend has a car dealership. And what do you think happened when he had over 100 cars sitting in a parking lot and they had baseball-sized hail coming? Oh, they were almost all of them totally totaled. And wow. I have a friend who has a house up there, and this hail hit his house so hard that it not only damaged the shingles, but it broke the wood underneath, and water ran into the house. And he's a modest house. It's not a really big, expensive house. He had a $110,000 repair bill from one storm. So now we've got typhoons, we've got hurricanes, we've got earthquakes, we've got volcanic eruptions, and all those solar panels, as fast as they go out, all those windmills are getting destroyed by climatic events and going into the landfills, and they're full of toxic substances. It's a game we can't win. We can't win. We can't keep up with it. Let's go on down. And now my son lives in Houston, and they've got a lot of windmills, right? It's out of the ocean, just like what you see there. So I don't know, it's been maybe 5 years. They had a freak storm. Everything got cold. The windmills all froze up. And for days, they had no energy. It's absolutely, and look at that picture over there. They're costly to build. They're costly to maintain. They're inefficient, and they're independent. They're not dependable. That's what's going on. We've got to wake up, and we've got to stand up and say, we're not going to have that crap. Let's go on down to the next slide. We're going to go quickly now. So this takes us to what comes out. 100% free, non-polluting energy is no myth. We've had it. It's existed forever. God said there's nothing new under the sun. We've got all these inventions. They've always been there. Every major inventor in the world, from Tesla all right. How can I forget this name? Who was Tesla's number one competitor for energy? Come on. Edison. All right, they all tell you, I didn't invent it. God showed it to me. He showed it to me. It came from him. I just tapped in and he showed it to me. It's like Hugo knew remote viewing. So there's nothing new under the sun. It's all been out there. It's just a matter of when are we going to calm down and quiet our minds so we can tap in and get that information. I mean, it's amazing. So I'm going to read this. If we stand united and demand free energy, we can have a paradigm shift where lack, hoarding, division, and economic slavery will be no more. We will have unity, peace, and prosperity. It is now or never, because without free energy, the planet will be dead, and so will we. We've got to expose the green energy scam, and we've got to embrace the new technologies. Back to you, Michael.
Wow, that's impressive. So from green energy to free energy. So they're telling us the green energy is our future because we're destroying the planet, but they are destroying the planet with their green energy.
Well, let's take it a step further, okay? So it's not just the free energy, it's policy. So what is the number one justification that the global elite monsters have for saying, oh, you know those Georgia Guidestones that we put out there and said that we were going to reduce population to 500 million, 500 million? And the UN said we're going to reduce population to about 1 billion. Well, what was the driving force behind that? You useless eaters are consuming too many of our natural resources. Therefore, to save the planet, we have to commit a genocide and kill 7.5 billion of us. Now, I'm going to give you the flip coin on the other side of that. You know what? No, it's you bastards who are doing this. Pardon my language. Here's what they're doing. They're making products that when I was growing up, we were poor. We had a refrigerator that we had for my entire life. I graduated college and we still have that little bitty refrigerator with those rounded corners and the compressors still work. And there are houses in the Middle East and structures, I should say, that are 4,000 years old that are still standing. We have the ability, and with some of the technologies coming, to build things that will literally last a lifetime. So now let's look at their claim that we're consuming too many of their natural resources. No, their economic system is consuming them. They're making things that have designed obsolescence. We can save the world by making things that are designed to last forever. We can save the world by making things that are built with free, non-polluting energy. We can save the world by getting the whole world to come together to solve the ecological problems that are killing the planet. We have the ability to step in and do the stewardship that God always wanted us to do. He made us the stewards of the planet, and we practically killed it. Now it's time for us to wake up. And then another layer of that is, when I was a kid, if a TV went out, you called the TV repairman. A washing machine went out, you called the washing machine repairman. No, you throw it away. We could, along with making products that last forever, we can make products that are modularized. And so something goes wrong, it's just a module. It doesn't take any super sophisticated guy. He comes out, he has some equipment, and it diagnoses what's wrong. You pull the module out, you put a new module in, and we have repairability and usability, and we have an economy that maybe reduces the waste by 50, 60, 70%. And all of a sudden, then we find out about frequency, and we find out that everything in the world is frequency. There's no shortage of anything in God's kingdom. And all of a sudden, they've lost their justification to commit mass genocide. Am I going too far overboard with the things that I'm saying?
No, I totally agree with you. And this has been demonstrated throughout time. When I was in Beirut, Lebanon, I remember I was in a home with I call it a home. It was more like almost like a castle. And the guy that we were with, and there was a CIA case officer who was talking to one of the higher ups in Lebanon. So he said, I think it's a 500 or 600-year-old home. And I was like, wow. And he said, now look down the hill over there. You see down there, that's 900 years old. And then he's like, I'm going to take you guys to one that I'm redoing that's 2,000 years old. So we went out, we looked at it. The foundation was perfect. Everything was perfect. You just needed to do some touch-ups, and it was going to be amazing. They still have Templar forts there, 1,500 years old Templar forts, all the way back to when Alexander the Great came through. There's still some of these structures that are there. We can do this. We don't have to continually, tear something last 50 years. Now something is a 50-year-old house. You're like, oh, that's a piece of crap. We're going to have to build something new. We have to stop that.
Yeah, and God knows my heart. He knows I worked in construction. He knows that I have tried to get a patent out the door years ago that would allow us to build houses that can be built more efficiently. So he came to me recently and gave me some technology that's going to revolutionize the housing industry. But before we even I'm not going to talk about what he's given me. I'm going to talk about the technologies you just outlined. Change the names of what they are, and we've got them right now today. What we're talking about is you're talking about rammed earth. That's an adobe home. Those structures are basically rammed earth, which is basically made out of the soil. And they're very thermodynamically efficient, et cetera, and they last forever. And then we've got a new technology coming, and it's hemp. It's hemp and mixed with concrete and mixed with lime. And both of those technologies are very ecologically friendly, and they will last for unbelievable periods of time. And then there's more technologies coming. And so we're going to create a situation using quantum computing where we will be able to bring new materials to the periodic table that will allow us to make things that we can't even imagine right now. We'll have materials that won't you can put in your house and it'll never rot. I mean, it's just amazing the technologies that are coming. So let's go on before, if I don't get me going, your audience will be here when the sun sets tonight. So,
one other point about Beirut, they grow all their crops. So the sea, from the sea all the way up, I mean, it's mountainous. It's like, staggered, but they're able to grow beautiful fresh foods. I mean, the food there in Beirut, in Lebanon, is amazing, and it's all fresh, and they grow all their stuff. You drive around, you see these greenhouses and everything. That's the way it should be now. But we rely on farms and so forth. Other countries, Mexico, to bring us food. We don't need that either.
I'm not going to get into this, but you just walked into a huge new story. If you want to do it with me at some time. Okay. So, Lebanon had underwater pipes buried. They had all the water they needed. Yep. They could irrigate. And then I can't remember the name, but there's a nation in the Middle East that doesn't have a single river, not a single river, and they export food. So let's look at the Western United States. Lake Mead is almost down to the point that the turbines are going to be unable to be used. Right. It's a crisis. The aquifers are drying up in the West, but we've got the technology to draw water from the air, and it's real, and it's just it's the simplest technology in the world. It's condensation. Yep. That's all. Great change the temperature, the water falls out of the air, but you can't cost effectively run it. Desalination will not work at mass. That you can do enough with desalination to have drinking water, but you can't do enough with desalination to refill an aquifer. You can't do enough with desalination to irrigate a field. But if we can take that, it's no more than the compressor on your ice box, the compressor in your air conditioner, or the dehumidifier in your basement. But you can't run it at mass unless you have free energy. So when we bring free energy on, the rivers of the world are not going to come from the melting ice caps. They're going to come from taking the massive amount of water that's in the air from the normal system where the God created. The sun comes down and evaporates the water. It goes up into the air. And if we can reach the right condensation point, it falls as rain. But now with the heat that we're having, with the climate change, if you will, that cycle is broken. It never gets cool enough in a lot of places to have it, and then when it gets in land further, then when it does come down, it comes down as a deluge. But we are going to shortly have the capability where we can draw all the water we want. The rivers of the world are in the sky, and we can tap into them. It's amazing things coming. Amazing, amazing things. So let's go on down, and I'm on a different slide.
I saw that when I did the Pacific Crest Trail. So when I 2,000 miles, the trees basically, in the morning, they created dew, and they rained down for themselves. So they took the moisture from the atmosphere. There's no rain, no nothing, but they're basically in. I just saw recently where a giant redwood, will produce 150 gallons by itself to replenish itself every year.
Yep. It's where we get the rainforest, and in the equatorial forces, all they have to do to get water, they don't even have to have the technology we talk about. They just put nets out, and the nets collect the dew, and it runs down in receptacles, and they got water. So what we're doing is, here's the thing, I'm going to talk about it as it shows. We know that all of the aquifers that feed all of the grain belts of the world all got their water from melting over thousands of years from the ice age. And we know when they're empty, they're empty. And so we have to do a lot of things. So now let's go back to that country in the Middle East that has not a single river. How is it that they have enough water to grow food and be an exporter? You know why? Let's go to the western part of the United States. If you ever get out there, you see all these gullies, all these washes, right? Mm-hmm. And water runs down, and what's it do? It creates a flood, right? And yet we have massive shortages of water. You know what this little nation does? Every gully, every little wash, everything, they dam it, and they create a lake. instead of allowing it to be a flash flood, they save the water. There are things, we have the technology. They just don't let us have it. And so I'm not going to get into that. There's another whole show, but we're going to win. I don't know why, but I don't see that in my slide pack. So let me see if I can read that. Oh, okay. I know what it's about. So basically what we're saying here is the government knows we're living in a technological era where we have no privacy. If you're buying gold and silver, if you're buying it from a dealer, they know it. If you're buying it and having it somewhere else in the world and have it shipped in, they know it. I don't care what you got, they know it. So when the time comes, if they want to take it like they did in 29, they just said, here's a piece of legislation. You'll turn your gold in by this date, and if not, we'll take it. We're going to rifle all the safety deposit boxes, and if you don't give us what we want, then you either get 10 years in prison or you get $10,000 fine, or you get the pleasure of having both. So understand that they're tracking us. So just to be on the safe side, as they pass these pieces of legislation to get a hold of our silver, if you're in numismatic is exempt. And if you've got a lot of silver, don't put it in a safety deposit box. Keep it in your house. There's some that say put it in a vault in a foreign country. I'd rather have it in my control. But just know they're tracking everything you have, and they're going to change legislation. I don't know what they're going to do, but just go forward assuming that the government lies to you. That's all I'll say. Let's just leave it at that. So we go to the next slide. Okay, going down. I was wanting to just skip that one. I really covered it. So now we go down to this. And here's what Donald Trump is doing. The man ain't no fool. He's not recreating anything. He's not creating anything. He's just doing what was proven to work in the past. Most Americans have never heard of this. It was called the American economic system. It was the system that following our bankruptcy, following the Civil War, when England orchestrated that war and drove us into bankruptcy, we said, we had enough with you, England. And for a brief period, we recognized that they were our enemy. And we put a 50% tariff on England. And then what did we do? We had in the reception, we had just a simple sales tax. And then on top of that, we had tariffs, and we built our entire infrastructure and built America. And in 34 years after going through a bankruptcy, 34 years later on our centennial anniversary, we announced America now, using that simple strategy, is now the wealthiest nation in the world. With these 5,915 patents that are coming, with the quantum computing that's coming, with the technology that's going to be released, America will be able to do that again. And the Industrial Revolution that we created that made us the wealthiest nation in the world in 34 years is nothing, because what we had to do then is build a transcontinental railroad to get access to our resources. And then we had to invent all that technology, the assembly line, the automobile, electricity, etc. But now we've got 5,915 patents already sitting there, ready for us to, as Trump says, just bring to scale. And we've got new technology with quantum computing that's going to allow us to do anything you can imagine. So what we're going into is a situation that makes the Industrial Revolution look like a tinker toy compared to what this Industrial Revolution is going to look like. And Donald Trump is following the same plan. He's not gambling with our future. He's implementing it. Here's what was unique about it. What England did and all the colonizing nations is they hoarded the natural resources of their colonies. They manufactured their stuff in sweatshops, and they undersold all the non-colonizing nations and drove them out. What did we do? We shared the continental railroad system with the world. We shared all of our technologies with the world, the assembly line, the automobile, the air conditioner, not the air conditioner, the telephone, etc. And until World War I came along and we were threatening the control of the world by England through the seaports, because we were in a process of connecting. It was probably a 20-year process, but building transcontinental railroads through all of Europe, coming across the Bering Straits is nothing more than a bunch of bridges like you have down going to the Florida Keys, over to Canada, over to Alaska, down through into Canada, down through the United States. And now we got Transcontinental Railroad going east to west. We've got one going north to south. McKinley was supporting a Panamanian canal going down through Mexico all the way down to South America. They were in across Gibraltar, and we would have had every continent in the world connected by rail except Australia, which is an island. And Britain said, heck that you're not gonna do that. We're gonna cause World War I. We're gonna destroy all those railroads. We're gonna kill 15 million people. We don't care. We're on an island. The world we fought on the mainland, and all of our wealth comes from our far-flung colonies around the world. So they just committed to killing millions of people to keep their power. This system is what's going to happen. That's going to change the world. It's going to end our dependency. So with that, we're almost done. There's only 1 or 2 slides left. Shall we go on, or do you want to make a comment before we go on?
No, that's good.
All right, here we go. Trump's plan. And here it is. We're back to a definition of what the American economic system was all about. Manufacture your products. This is Trump now in America, and you won't pay any tariffs. None. So the deal we have with Mexico and with Canada is if you manufacture your products in Mexico or Canada, you can ship them in the United States and you won't pay any tariffs at all. But shame on you. You guys have been cheating, and you've been buying stuff manufactured in China, bringing it into the country and changing the tags and claiming that you manufactured it. No. So he's schooling Canada, and he's schooling Mexico. I'm sorry. So anyway, he's saying basically, buy America, build America. America will lead the world in the future. And we'll get back to the American economic systems. Here, I'm going to read this. The American economic system was the only system ever devised, the tendency of which was that of equalizing and elevating the condition of man throughout the entire world. America innovated the Industrial Revolution and shared the technology with the world, and all nations prospered, and that continued until World War I, when England decided that we were going to drive them out of business. Let's go on down to the next slide. And this is the proof of what I just said. This is the actual pamphlet, or a photograph of a pamphlet from the American Centennial celebration, where almost 10 million people came to America to see the marvels of the Industrial Revolution. And on that date, 1876, we said, today, America, the youngest nation in the world, is now the wealthiest nation in the world, based on the economic system that we created, where we shared resources with the entire world in technology. That is coming in spades. And let's go on down. And now this one slide coming is going to be the basis for one of the most amazing shows you'll ever see. Here's a piece. There's something in here that you don't realize. So when we get the new economic system, it's going to result in this. It's not a fiat system. They're not going to be able to manipulate the currency. So they won't be able to cause inflation or deflation or wage suppression or stock market manipulation or boom bust cycles, our national or consumer debt, our poverty and division, global conflicts. We're going to have peace and prosperity throughout the world. But over on the other side, here's what people don't see. XRP and blockchain are going to give us 3 gifts that maybe we don't realize. Because of blockchain, we have privacy for a period of time, unless they get a hold of the technology. And that means that we're going to be able, that's an important part of getting honest elections. If they vote and they're not supposed to vote, we're going to know it instantaneously. That's an important part of getting rid of the money laundering. That's an important part of getting rid of the human trafficking. And now you take XRP, and what they do, you'll never believe this, audience, but what they do is they transfer your money from country to country. There's $17 trillion that never gets into the marketplace from the Nostro accounts that says America is going to transfer money over to France, and there has to be money, US dollars and French francs, and for the banks to make that transaction. And it's done on SWIFT, and it takes 3 to 5 days, and it goes through multiple middlemen, and they're floating your money for days, making obscene amounts of money on interest on floating trillions of dollars. That's all going to go away. And that's by virtue of XRP. And so in coming shows, I'm going to show you when XRP is going to kick in and the role that it's going to play. And then a few years out, we're going to realize we're just now at the advent of quantum computing, and we're going to realize that everything that AI is doing today, as sophisticated it is, and everything that's going to happen with XRP and everything that's going to happen with this new financial system is going to look like a tinker toy compared to what we're going to get when we implement a new computer technology, quantum computing, that can solve the problems of the world in minutes, problems that could never be solved with conventional computing. So let's go on down. But do you want to make comments on this one, Mike? Then this is the last slide, except to try to hawk my book one last time. You got any comments you want to make?
No, it's just rolling really good. Thanks.
All right, here we go. This is the end of it. So America is the only nation in the world. God chose us. And he knows what we've done, and he knows what we're capable of doing. And there's a little thing over on the far side that's in that pink. And if you're going to be the leader of the world, you have to check every one of those boxes. If you can't check them all, you're not going to be the leader of the world. Forget anything about China being the leader of the world. They're going to collapse. It's not going to be communist anymore. Russia's not going to be communist. Iran's not going to be communist. North Korea's not going to be communist. Cuba's not going to be communist. That's gone. And we're not going to have that. But we're going to be the only nation, and that's the technology. China is going to continue to be our number one competitor. They've really developed some pretty significant technologies, but the world knows their pariah. Here's why we're going to be the leader of the world, where Donald Trump is going to keep his promise of making America not only great, but greater than ever. Here it is. You have to have a free society if the world trusts. That's America. That nations feel that I'm in with you. I'm not in with some communist nation. I'm not in with the socialist communist dictatorships that Mondami and AOC and them are trying to support. Then you have diverse, abundant natural resources. Those are the deals that Trump is saying that says we're going to have all the technology, all the resources we need. Diverse and innovative economy. That's going to be what's coming out of the 5,915 patents on the quantum computing. Leadership in manufacturing and trade. We're already moving in that direction. Energy and food independence, where other nations have no water, and a nation that doesn't have water doesn't have the ability to have a stable economy. We got water, at least for the time being. And as things go on, we've got a way to get it. Energy and food independence, demographics as it relates to GDP. You look at other nations, the world, look at China. They've had their one-child program. They now have one of the oldest populations in the world. So they have a crisis where they're going to have a burden of unbelievable numbers of older people to take care of, and not the labor force. And Japan's carry trade was created because for 2 decades they had the oldest population in the world. We have quite a few young people because we're still birthing. And if you look at the Islam nations, they said we're going to outbirth you. We're going to send all of our people through Syria over into Europe, and they're going to take their 4 wives, and they're going to have 10 or 12 kids with each family, and that's what they're doing. But you know what else is happening? The reverse is happening. So this is why God had me read the Quran. In the nations where Islam is, which is in northern Africa and the Middle East, they're not birthing 12 kids per family. They're birthing about 1.5, not even replacement. Why? Because Islam has no economic basis of any substance to it. It's not a technological leader. They're poor. All they got, if you got oil, that nation has some money. If you don't, you're in poverty. So they run off to Europe, and they run off the United States, and then the very nations that give them the ability to have a far better life than they had before, they're our enemies. So now America and Europe are waking up, and we're going to get them out of here. I mean, that's a whole other show. But basically, these are all the things you have to be the leader of the world. Only America can check every single solitary box. We are God's ordained nation, used to spread Christianity around the world, used again to usher in the great revival. And let's go to the last slide. And if you like the kind of stuff that I do, then share my links and share this man. I do half of what he does, because I just basically create my own content, which takes a long, long time. He reaches out and takes content creators like me over here, over there, over here, over there, and brings you all kinds of stuff. So follow Michael, follow me, buy my book, because here's what we're at. This is what God showed me. When I really truly bring you out and bring your books forward, I'm about to release a new book. It'll be when we're at the greatest time of peril in our life, greater than World War One, greater than World War II. We're there right now. We're the fight where Sun Tzu says we're on death ground. If we lose 500 years of dictatorship, if we win peace and prosperity, everything you need to know to be a responsible member of a republic is in this book. So please, I don't want you to be in fear as this comes down. If you buy this book, you'll know we win. You'll know in every place that comes along, we won already. Don't worry, we've won. So I want to give you peace of mind. So I encourage you to click on that QR code, buy this book, at least go get a free chapter to read. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Michael to close it up. And Mike, I apologize. I just talk, and I don't give anybody much of a chance. But I give you more chances than most people because I know how much you know. So please, you're it up for us.
You're definitely, revealing a lot of good stuff. There's some stuff that I want to have you back on and talk about specifically, and that's the coming earth changes. So you're well versed in that as well, and I think between the two of us, we have real good.
50 years. I've been studying it for 50 years.
Yeah.
So we don't need any slides. If you want to do that show, it'll be rock and roll. You get on, you punt, I punt, you punt, I punt. We pass the ball back and forth, and we just have a good time. So I can do that anytime you want. I don't need one moment's worth of presentation because I got it all up here. And I think you probably did pretty much the same way. So if you want to orchestrate a time for that, that would be fun. That would be a riot. And the audience could see me in a situation where I'm not tied to these damn slides, where we can just converse back and forth. I use the slides not for me, but because God told me I'm supposed to teach people, and a lot of people need an audio visual to do it. But I'd love to do that show with you. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll schedule it hopefully soon. So
okay,
Tracy will get with you, and we'll figure out time, and we'll kick it off. Thanks, Larry. Incredible information. I'm wearing one of Larry's shirts. It's incredible. I have like this coffee cup. You can put like a whole coffee, the entire everything, all your coffee in it at once. It's like
there's a smaller one too, folks. There's a little one. That's for the Michael Jacos of the world, the guys who carry a lot of muscle around and need a big coffee cup. So anyway, Michael, it's always a pleasure. I love being on your shows, and I can't close the show without saying I also love your wife. She's incredible. You guys are so tapped in that it's amazing, and that's why I love doing shows with you, because I know that you're coming from the focus of God, and so am I, and you're informed, and so am I. And so together we can get out some good stuff. So I'll let you go for now. Go back and salvage what's left of the day if you can.
All right, I will. Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.